Yo, what's up, guys? Today I'm going to cover the Chapter 6 section of the 80% run. If you have any questions about the terminology that I use, don't understand something that I'm saying, you can go back to the Chapter 1 tutorial video, and at the beginning of that video I explain all the different types of dashes and different types of movement. Let's just get started right away. This first screen is one of the main screens most players use the analog stick on. If you're a D-pad player, you might want to consider using an analog for this screen. And the reason for that is that feathers, if you turn more than a certain amount, the feather loses speed. So because the D-pad only has up, left, right, and down, if you go from like up to right, it's always too drastic of a degree change. Like you can't go north northwest, you can only go from north to northwest. So because of that, the feathers slow down if you use the D-pad. For this jump, I like to do an extended dash jump. So I dash and then jump late and then dash up into the feather. That. And then right here, when you pick up this feather right here, if you maneuver around these two pillars without losing much speed, you can actually skip the next feather and go all the way to the top feather. Let's see if I can do it all out of the pause. Yeah, like that. And there was a feather like southwest of me, but I didn't have to pick that feather up because I was able to maintain my speed. And that's almost impossible with the D-pad, but you can try it if you don't have an analog stick or if you don't like the analog stick. But I highly recommend using the analog stick for that particular feather right there. From here on out, it's just move as normal, picking up the feathers. You can skip one feather here if you want to. It doesn't really save time to skip it. As soon as this floor right here with the gates, as soon as that is off your screen, now let me correct myself. It's not as soon as it's off your screen. About half a second after the floor is off your screen, you can dash up into the cutscene and trigger the cutscene a little bit sooner. So I'm not gonna get the timing now because I'm paused, but I'll just do the dash anyway. Like that. So when you start in the lake here, if you want to be a TAS, you can learn the wall jump off of this spike up here. It's pretty cool. It's like something like that, and then you all jump at it. Us mere mortals, we all go this way. And hit this Kevin block on the right, and then on the top to get up here. I call him Kevin because that's the name of the person that made the sound, but they're just called crush blocks or thwomps, whatever you want to call them. Okay, once you get into this screen, you come in with an airborne transition, so the fastest way to get to that feather is to wave dash to it. So because you come in airborne, you just do that to get to it, but if you're a little shaky on your wave dashes, it's perfectly fine to just land and walk over to the feather. Same thing at the top here. I don't use the analog for any more of these feathers. Whoops. Same thing at this exit of the feather right here. You can do a wave dash onto the wooden bridge and then dash to the top if you want to be as optimal as possible, but again, you can just land and jump until you are, it would look like that out of the feather. So it's like bam, and then bam, like that. On this screen, you want to try to maintain as much speed as possible because you want to hit this block closer to the top on the right hand side so that you can get on top of the block as soon as possible. So I want to hit the block there, and then I want him to go immediately up. I don't want him to fly all the way to the right. And then as he gets me past these pink spikes on my left here, I'm going to hyper dash to the wall. Climb up. I like to hyper dash into this transition and then bunny hop on the next screen, but you don't have to. It's not that big of a time save. You do want to dash up forward out of that feather so you land on this elevated ground. You don't want to have to climb up or land on this because then you can't dash jump out of the screen, see? And then from here you could just dash jump and dash into this feather. Again, with perfect feather control, you can get from this feather to the next feather without transforming back into Madeline. So if you want to use the analog for that, like by all means, go for it. Just make sure you don't die in the process trying to be too optimal. That screen is pretty straightforward. This screen has the heart and the cassette. They're both on the left. So if you're doing a different type category, then or just trying to 100% the game, that's where you would find them. There's no strawberries in this level, so those are the only secrets. Everything else is the same. For this section right here, you want a neutral wall jump up this wall above me. To neutral wall jump, you wall kick off of the wall and then immediately press back towards the wall. So you can't hold towards the wall. You have to press the direction after kicking off the wall. So it looks like this. And you can see that I'm gaining height. This also doesn't cost stamina because I'm wall kicking off the wall. See, if I don't press anything, she just does that. And if I hold left, obviously she'll go over there. But you can climb this wall completely. You get 5 grabs, 5 of these up jumps, like that, before you run out of stamina. So most people, what they'll do is they'll get on the wall and then up grab a bunch, and then at the top they'll neutral wall kick. The other thing you could do is wall bounce off of this first corner right here to get a little bit more height, and then it should only take you 1 neutral jump at the top to make it. Once you get to the top, you can wave dash off of this corner right here to get into the next screen. So you land here and then bam. So this screen has a really advanced strat that a lot of top runners are doing now. It's not really complicated, but it is semi-precise, and there's a couple parts to it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what's involved. We're using this Kevin that I'm standing on right here, and it's this blue block that he's about to run into. This is the main important block. So you see that he runs into it, he stops, and he knocks the block down. This block, though, is just like the crumble blocks in Chapter 1, where if you grab them, they fall. Crumble blocks in general, when you land on them or when you grab them, the faster you get off of them, the faster they fall. They have like a set time limit, but if you get off of them, the time limit expires actually sooner. So the trick to this jump is to touch the crumble block and get off of it as soon as you trigger it, so that it falls at the fastest possible. And that looks like this. Now, you might be wondering, like, how'd you dash there? Well, first it's a hyper dash off of the top of the thwomp right here. And the second thing is this positioning. Oh, I missed it. Just see if I can get it. Right there. So because Madeline is crouched, and because hyper dashes are crouched dashes essentially, because you're holding down right, Madeline, it doesn't get hurt from hyper dashing from here. So even though I haven't cleared the spikes, if I hyper dash from this spot, I will reach the block before the thwomp gets there. If you hyper dash any later than this, chances are he's still going to run into the block and you're going to have to dash into him again. So that's the 2 parts of the trick. The first part is getting off the block as fast as possible so that it falls right away, and then the second part is dashing as early as you can, so to give yourself more time to make the jump. So this is the visual cue I use. Like, you see how there's 2 like really low spikes coming out of the pink? I try to jump from the middle of that section, maybe just a little bit slightly further to the right, but that's the visual cue that I use for this jump. Oops, I don't know how we got that. I wasn't holding down, so I died. So you saw how early I jumped. I was practically at the beginning of the crush blocks. You also want to dash jump off of the thwomp at the end, so that you get momentum going into the next screen. You can just hold forward and go into this feather. From here, after getting that feather, you're going to come up and hit this Kevin. And what you want to do is you want to climb him so that you can land on the top and get your dash back, and then immediately get back down to safety. So it's like this. The spikes have like an upward curve here, so you can try to get a little higher before you jump off, but make sure you don't miss the jump, because without the momentum from the block, you cannot make the jump. So make sure you are jumping on time. Alright, so this is the first decision tree of Hallows. Hallows has, I believe, 6 or 7 decision trees back to back. The one I use, I believe, to be the fastest. The world record actually uses a different one, but I think with proper optimization, this one is better. So all the decision trees between that I'm going to explain now and the world record are exactly the same, except for the last one. So the first decision tree here is whether you can go up or down. everybody goes up here now. We used to go down because we didn't realize how fast the up screen was, and also because climbing is generally slower than falling. But if you hyper dash from landing here and then bunny hop here, whoops, I got corner fucked. Like that, you can get here, and then you can even use your dash like this to get up here. Because every time you land on one of these steps, you'll get your dash back. So you dash and dash and dash, and then this is going to be the first screen we're going to go to. With an extended hyper dash, you can get over this set of pink here and get to the feather, right? But we generally don't want to slow down our movement to set up tricks like this. So what you can do is you can wave dash from this screen and then bunny hop, or extended hyper dash from the other screen. What TGH does is he dashes into the screen, he crouch dashes into the screen and then jumps on the first frame like that. And I find that a little bit more precise than bunny hopping. So you know, you can use whatever strategy you want to use, but the objective is to get through this pit without using the crush block. After you get into this pit, you can either maneuver delicately around the spikes and go straight to the feather, or you can wall kick off the left. I like to wall kick. I think it's a little bit safer. Reflections is a level with a lot of silly accidental deaths. I don't like to add to them on my own because it adds to my tilt factor. So I just wall kick here, grab this feather, and then exit here. I like to exit the feather with a wave dash, just to hyper into the next screen automatically. Feathers are also slower than hypers, so you know, the faster you can dash out of your feathers, the better it is for you. If you don't have to be in the feather, it's better to not be in the feather. This next screen you have to, it's again the option between up and down. Down is completely horrendous, don't even think about down for this one. Up is definitely the way to go. So you have to traverse this giant gap. There's a couple ways to do it. One of them is to extend the hyper dash to the bottom right platform that you see there on the green, and then climb up. The other way is to just bounce on the right hand side of the bumper and have the bumper bounce you up to the top. And then the third, and what I think is the most optimal way, but I still can't do consistently in runs, is to cancel my current hyper into an extended wave dash. And what that would do is hyper me across the screen and keep my dash. So I'm probably not going to be able to get it. The door is also going to close behind me, so if I don't get it, I'm not going to be able to show you. But it would hopefully... Oh, see, if I had kept my dash, I would have been able to dash across there. Yeah, but a regular extended wave dash is almost enough. But because you have momentum from the previous hypers, like when you cancel a hyper into a hyper, you have a tiny bit more momentum. That's what ultra dashing is essentially, but we're not going to get into that. And then you just want to get up here and go through here. You can actually hyper into this screen because you're going to want to do an extended hyper dash right here. Whenever you hyper into a screen, you can do a bunny hop instead of doing an extended hyper dash. So you would hyper like this and then just bunny hop. And then from up here, you get another extended hyper dash to get across. How you get down from here is still up to debate. I like to just dash down, land here, and then hyper because you want a bunny hop there. If you forget to hyper there, you can actually extend it hyper dash before this wall gets created. Like you'll be in the opening where this wall was, and then you can extend it hyper dash over this guy. And if you die for some reason on the spikes, you make a mistake or whatever, you can also reverse wave dash over. And then from here, there's the third decision tree of up or down. Again, up is vastly superior. But you can experiment. Here, I'll just show you what down is so you can see how bad it is. Yeah, so down is like 2 feathers and a giant like maze that you have to maneuver with feathers. Feathers suck to begin with, so don't even have to explain that. Up is just 2 extended hyper dashes. So again, to replace the extended hyper dash, I'm going to replace it with a bunny hop. And then the next one, I could just wave dash right there out of that bunny hop to be optimal. But I usually mess that up or get corner fucked by this corner. So I just like to land and extend that hyper dash. And then that's the last sign over here. Okay, there's another fork. This is the path we don't take up here. You can see it's bumper screens with locks and stuff. Very convoluted. We're just gonna go straight down in this maze of walls. Come out of here. This screen you have to be very careful about hypering into. If you hyper into the screen, you need to stop your momentum. There is a bunny hop that you can do to get over this first set of spikes. Oops. It requires a really short hyper and then a really precise dash. It's something that I've thought about adding to my game, but I'm not sure if it's something I can get consistent at yet. Something like that. But once you get into the screen, what I do is I just hyper and then I just dash up and land on this guy. And then just do the room as normal. This next screen, you're going to get into a feather immediately, and you're going to want to go for the north path. So you got to maneuver around these bumpers and then go out the north path. If you're good enough at the feather, it'll expire in this screen, and you'll be able to dash to that jewel that I just grabbed. If you're not comfortable with the feather movement, I recommend stopping your feather early, either by dashing down into the floor, or by just letting it expire naturally before you get here, and then just doing the room naturally by dashing up into the jewels. This room is pretty straightforward. And then this leads into the last fork of the Hallows section, and the last fork is the one that is, I believe, still up to debate. First, you're going to hyper into the room so that you can land on this guy, and you're going to crouch dash over this so you don't touch the spikes. And then if you want to go my route, you go up from there. So what I do is I hyper onto him, and then I dash forward and dash up like that. But you can also like hyper onto him and then dash forward and dash down forward to get here. So I'll show you this path first because it's the more popular of the two paths. This path is 4 bumpers and a feather. And what you can do is you can skip the second bumper by doing a bumper boost. And a bumper boost is if you're holding away from the bumper when you hit the horizontal point of the bumper, so either the exact left side or the exact right side. If you're holding away from the bumper, you actually go like twice as far. So this is the normal bumper distance. You can see I barely made it to this bumper. And then this is the extended bumper distance. You can see I made it all the way over here. So because you have to be holding the direction before you get into the bumper, I like to dash into the bumper to make sure that I have enough time to switch directions. And then what you want to do is you want to dash up into this guy, and then dash right into this guy, grab the feather, and exit the screen. If you don't feel comfortable with that, you can always do the vanilla intended way, like that. It's barely a time loss. I personally don't like feathers, so I don't do this room. But that's the room that the world record does. This room is actually 6 bumpers with a dash jewel somewhere in the middle. And for the room, you know, vanilla intended way is to like bounce on all the bumpers and come up here, get your dash back, and then bounce. And if after watching that, you're probably like, this room is way slower. I mean, obviously you can extend it hyper to skip this guy, but even if you skip one bumper, the room is still like way slower. But if you optimize the room, and by optimizing I mean you hyper into the room, and then you use bumper boost properly, you can kind of change the way the room looks. Let me see if I can get it on the first try here. And there you see I only touched 3 of the bumpers, and I am at the exit of the screen. So by bumper boosting, I was able to get from the 3rd bumper to the 5th, to the 4th, and then to the exit. And I only used the 2nd bumper to land on the 3rd. But that one, it's a little difficult because it requires you to get the bumper boost on this one. And falling into a bumper boost is really difficult. So, the way I entered the screen, what it allowed me to do was it allowed me to land on the right side of that bumper, which let me maintain I didn't have to use my dash to get through the spikes because I landed on the right side of the 2nd bumper. So that's the trick to that. And then because I was able to maintain my dash, I can dash into the right side of this bumper and bumper boost because I have time to hold right. Oops, I hit the wrong part of the bumper. And so I'm doing a hyper into an extended wave dash, landing on the right, and then bumper boosting to here, and bumper boosting again to the exit. If you bumper boost properly from that 4th one, you don't even, I think you land like right here, and just get up. And those are the two rooms, and you just decide which one you want to do. I like the optimization of the bumper boosts and the movement. Some people like the simplicity of the other one. I think time-wise, they're very, very similar. I think it's just up to you what you want to do. The next screen is going to be a bunch of feathers, and regardless of which path you choose, if you jump dash into the transition, you'll automatically grab a feather. You can always skip the first feather you see. It's the top one above me if you come from the top, and the bottom one below me if you come from the bottom. You can always skip both those feathers regardless of where you come from and just head straight for this middle feather. After that, you want to grab the immediate next feather, and that should take you all the way to the end. When you get to the end, you should wave dash into the transition, just because fast movement is the best way to move in Celeste. And I do like that. This feather right here, you have to dash into it because it's encapsulated by a bubble. However, if you dash to it from about where I am right now, you won't go past the bubble. And not going past the bubble is important to hitting the next feather without transforming into Madeline. So if I'm here, oops, like that, I can get to this feather without transforming back. Now there's 4 bumpers coming up here, and what the bumpers are doing is based on how long it took you to get those 2 feathers. So you need to learn the different timings of the bumpers depending on whether you picked up this feather immediately or you transformed back into Madeline. Because those different situations, even if you die, like dying changes the cycle because the death cycle, picking up that second feather slowly, picking up the third feather slowly, all these things affect the cycle of the bumper. So you have to be ready to react to what the bumpers are doing. So I'm gonna come here, and these bumpers open and close. I think because of the speed that I'm going at, that this next set is gonna open just barely while I'm trying to go through, and that'll let me get all the way to the end, hopefully. Nope. They were actually just, if I had grabbed the feather correctly, see that right there, I went really high. So now they're not gonna be, they're gonna be like way open, and those guys are gonna be closed. Whereas before they were, oh my god, I can't get it now. That's not gonna make it either. Yeah, I'm trying to show you that you can like make it straight through the middle if you grab the feather correctly, but I'm having a little bit of a hard time with some feathers here. Yeah, well, like I said, you have to get ready to adjust based on what the bumpers are doing. I can't show all the possible RNGs. I wanted to show that one RNG because it looks cool when you go straight through the middle of all of them, but oh well. The next screen is the start of the Reflections segment. So you have a cutscene with the old lady. There's a lot of like little steps and stuff in the way here for these next sections, so you just have to learn how to like control Madeline properly so that you can move quickly through the sections. Remember that if you hyper, you're lower to the ground than if you wave dash, even though they are the same speed. So like for instance, if I jump and wave dash here, I will make it to the exit. But if I hyper, I got stuck on the wall. Maybe I could hyper and hold jump. Because they should be about the same actually. So, but dash jumps is what I meant to compare it to originally. Dash jumps are way higher than hypers and wave dashes. So if you need a lot of elevation, like this first jump right here, see if I hyper or if I wave dash. Actually, I might be able to hyper onto this. Wait, how did we get into the screen? Like hyper here, and then hyper here, and hyper. Yeah, something like that. This screen is just hit him on the bottom, and then the floor breaks. You can grab the block to go down with him, or hold down. It's about the same thing. This screen has 2 ways to do it. I'm going to show the hard way first because it skips the checkpoint, and that way I can come back up here and show you the second way. Both ways start off with the same extended hyperdash from here, so you want to extend that hyperdash so that you can save your dash and dash back. Otherwise you have to use one of those bumpers to bounce back. This first ravine right here, you can see the gap immediately under me. If you just grab this wall, you'll always be lined up with the gap. So you want to just make sure you're up against that wall and then fall through it. The second ravine actually has a lineup as well. It's the wall immediately under this ravine right here. So if you dash into this wall, it will line you up perfectly for the next ravine. And this is the harder of the 2 paths. So So you dash into this wall, fall down, and then here you have to move left because the next gap you want is on the left. And then this will take you to this third ravine here. Make sure to bounce on one of those bumpers, or you could just land on the green floor, whichever you prefer, to get your dash back. This next ravine is not straight. If you want, you could think of it like kind of like a zigzag, like it's down and then down right and then down again. So you have to readjust in the middle of it, but at the top and at the bottom you're going to be going straight. So it's like that and then like that. And I should have paused it in the middle of the ravine, but we'll go through it some more. And if you're able to maintain your dash through all of this, you can wave dash off of this little piece of floor right here to get to the exit. And that's that section. The other section, which I highly recommend using the safe way until you get used to that last ravine, because that last ravine is killer when you're not used to it. So what I recommend here is you start the same, extended hyper dash, just as the same. You come here, you grab this wall, fall down, and then here, instead of dashing to the right, you're going to dash to the left. And you're going to use this bumper to get across here. When you land here, this is a checkpoint. If I retry now, you'll see I'm start right here again. And what this does is it lets you die in this ravine without having to redo the entire room. And that's why I recommend this. It's a tiny bit slower, but it's way better until you get used to that last ravine. So again, it's down, and you can see that if I would have just went straight down from the entrance, I would have landed on those spikes to my left. So you want to go down and then a little bit to the right and then straight down again. And I'm making hand motions that you can't see. Oh my gosh, these splits were open this whole time. That feels bad, man. Well, I guess we'll just get rid of it for the second half. And again, same thing. Hyper, bounce, dash, dash. When you get to this exit, you can actually hyper as soon as you touch this floor. As long as there's floor under the water, you can always hyper. So you want to do a couple of hypers here to get to the opening in the water. Like that. If you're not comfortable with your hyper movement still, or if for some reason you like hyper late and hold jump, or you hyper and then dash and like fall in here or something, like you get stuck a lot here. Cransoon found that if you enter the screen and retry, you automatically put up the gap in the water. So if you're having issues with movement there, you can just do a retry there to get to the water. For this section, you want to get against the left wall. So usually you hyper past it. So what I do is I dash diagonal down left till I get to the wall, then straight down till I get to the spikes, then down right, and then straight down some more. After you get all the way to the bottom here, you just have to dash once across here, and then straight down, and then once you start moving down right, you don't have to stop dashing anymore. And you can wave dash off of this floor when you get to the bottom. And it doesn't matter if you hyper into the screen, there's nothing going on in this next screen. It's just, you just have to hit the Kevin and jump over the pink. Make sure to hold forward when you're jumping over the pink, otherwise the momentum will force you way far back. I'm actually going to do this one more time. So remember, I hypered into the screen, I bunny hop to get my dash back, and then I hit him on the side, and then I use forward to get over him. So when I look at Battleline's hair, when it completely disappears here, right here, when it completely disappears here, I know it has 2 movements left. So I'm going to see it again, it's going to disappear one more time, and then the next time it disappears, there's going to be ground. So the next time it's getting ready to disappear, I'm already hypering off the block. Like that. And then if you bunny hop, you'll maintain that hyper momentum through to the end. So this is the start of the rock bottom split. Battleline is a big point of difficulty for a lot of players, but I have a lot of really easy strats and a lot of like really consistent strats. So some of them are a little bit more execution demanding, but hopefully you'll be able to implement these strats in your game and get through it. So a lot of these strats I won't be able to show more than once, just due to the nature of Battleline. You can't backtrack in this fight, and the second time around is always a death cycle. So you want to get used to the first cycle of the fight and try to do the fight without dying as many times as you can. So the very first attack after the cutscene triggers Battleline to move back and away from you, and you can actually just I'll just show you. I hyper into her and then hyper jump dash. And the things a lot of people do wrong there is that they try to delay the dash. So when you hyper the second time to hit her, just jump and dash right away. Battleline has a huge hitbox, huge, like way bigger than what she looks like. So you just have to like get into like her sphere of influence and you will always hit her. So again, it's hyper and then hyper jump dash. You saw I was like way in front of her there. I didn't want to get the sound glitch. Again, hyper jump. Look how far in front of her I am, and it's gonna hit her. Oh, sorry, I let go forward after the pause. Like that. So, and then you always want to try to dash to the exit if you can. So you recoil back away from her here. So as soon as you finish recoiling, you just dash down forward like that. So the first few hits of Battleline, the first few transitions of Battleline, I'm sorry, you just have to hold forward when you go into them. If you hold forward, you'll get really close to her, and you can generally just dash into her. So it's like hold forward, dash into her. You always want to dash forward, or down immediately after hitting her. You'll go forward if she's close enough where you can just hit her again after landing. You'll go down forward if there's ground there that you can get to hyper, or you'll go straight down if there was no ground to move down forward. So here I go forward because if I jump and dash up forward, I'll be able to hit her again. Like that. See? Like I could have dashed down there, but then I would have had to avoid the block. So I'm just going forward. And from this distance, it's a lot harder to jump and dash at her. So, but she's lined up perfectly for a hyper dash. So the next few hits are all going to be hyper dashes. So I'm going to hyper dash here, dash down, hyper dash here, dash up, hyper dash here, dash up. So again, hit her. Oops, I forgot to dash forward. Hit her, hyper, down, hyper, up, hyper, up. And notice that I'm always dashing forward after hitting her. I don't let her like send me across the screen from her recoil. I always like try to get back into the fray so that I can hit her before the fireballs manifest. So again, we're going into another screen. So for this screen, I'm just going to hold forward and dash. See? And then as soon as I hit her, I dash forward again. And then you can see right here, once you get used to the strats, you see that it sort of becomes like a logical common nature for you, like what you want to do. You don't even have to remember much. Like you land here and you're like, oh, how do I hit her from here? Well, just jump at her. If I just jump and dash at her, she's going to get hit. Remember, if the fireball is still in her hand, it does not hurt you. So even if she's making a fireball or a laser or whatever, you can always hit her. And I'm going to do that room again just to show off the hypers a little bit more. So again, hit her, dash down, hyper, dash up. And then hyper one more time. And you'll notice you can save a little bit of time here. Like after this hit, you can dash down forward and hit her. But if you're not super comfortable in your control, you know, you can always just dash down to safety and then do a hyper dash. So this next screen is the first screen where you don't hold right, I believe. I think this screen is the hyper screen. And the reason I know this is just because it's only 3 to 4 screens that you hold right in, and then this entryway is really narrow. That's kind of how I remember it. This entryway is really narrow. So what's going to happen here is there's going to be 4 platforms along the bottom. Oh, I didn't mean to retry. I didn't have the menu open, so I didn't see that it was on retry. Oops, I didn't dash that way, but okay. Yeah. Misinput dashes happen to the best of us. Oh no, this is actually a hold forward screen. So you can actually hold forward on this screen still and just dash over to her and then hit her. I'll redo the screen. The other strat you can do is if you forget to hold forward and you land here, you can actually just hyper from right here and it hits her also. And this is actually just as fast, if not faster, but I always forget to do it because I'm just holding forward. So you can just land here and, nope, she moved out of the way a little bit. Like that, bam. And then you want to land up right up there before the rock comes down so that you can hyper from here to her. When you do this hyper, remember to hold left like almost immediately because you don't want to fly past her. She's actually like really close to you. The trajectory is kind of weird. So when you hyper here, you want to like come back to land on her. This is the first instance of you recoiling into a position where you have to hyper from the like where you're recoiling to. So like right here, if I dashed forward, if I dash down forward, if I dash down, like I still have to hyper to those crumble blocks because there's no way for me to get to those blocks just with my dash. So in this situation, I'm going to land and hyper, but as you get better in controlling Madeline's movement, you want to learn to just wave dash in these situations, because those few frames that you're spending landing and hypering, you know, it's costing you time when wave dashes and hypers are completely interchangeable. So it's like, I'm gonna go like this. Oops, of course. See, like normally I just do this, but you can do this like that. Dash forward and then one more hyper. And then this is the one I was trying to explain before. So when the first time you enter this room, if you hyper from the first platform to the third platform, you can then bunny hop straight to Battleline and kill her before any of the bubbles are in your way. This only works the first time you enter the room. The second time, I think, she shoots them too diagonally, you run into them. So again, this is one of those situations where you could just wave dash immediately upon entering the transition. You don't have to land and hyper, but it's completely up to you, like what you feel more comfortable with. And it looks like this. Something else to keep in mind if you do die on this screen is if you land here and then grab the wall, she'll shoot downward, and then you could jump out and dash at her. Oh, that shot actually does work on the death cycle. I noticed it just now when I was doing it. I don't remember the last time I died on this screen, sorry. I don't remember all the death cycles. But yeah, if you're moving too slowly for whatever reason, you can bam, bait the fireball, and then bam. This next screen, you can hyper it into it if you want. It's just like a series of walls that you have to traverse. You have to dash on the first one. You have to jump over the second one. I like waiting for the fireballs before I jump, because it lets me time my finishing attack on her before she actually shoots another set of fireballs. So if I wait for these here and then jump, I can completely scale this wall before she throws another set of fireballs. She actually stopped shooting there. I think she has like a set limit or something. But again, if you just bam, bam. You see, she tried to shoot there, but I didn't let her. If you're scared of the fireballs, remember that fireball was completely out. She was actually going to shoot two. The first one was completely out. It still didn't hit me. Until both of them leave her hand, they don't hurt me. So I never have to be scared. I just have to climb the wall as fast as possible. And again, that's based on me when I jumped over this one. Like I jumped over that one as soon as I could, and then I climbed up. Okay. These L-shaped blue blocks are signs of you're going to have to hold this L. The best way to do these screens, in my opinion, is to do extended hyper dashes off of the green platforms, and then just get straight to battle line. So again, you can land and do an extended hyper dash, or you can do a wave dash upon entering that retains your dash. Oops. Do that again, like that, because you want to just straight up hit her with the dash. You don't want to have to dodge the attack, and this works off of the wave dash as well. Even though I'm doing it poorly. There we go. And then when you recoil off of her here, you can still hyper and hit her again. So it's one of those things again, like you're just gonna want to start doing wave dashes off of all these hits. From this last block here, you can dash jump and it'll hit her. So this is one of the few instances where you don't want to hyper dash. If you hyper dash, you'll go under her and you have to come back to get her. Just dash jump and get her. Again, this is another extended dash room. It's good that these rooms are back to back because it makes them easier to remember. But after you do one, you have to do the other. It's again, you just want to land and do an extended hyper dash or do a wave dash off of the transition. And then after hitting her, you can again do a wave dash or a hyper straight to the feather and then just hold straight. You don't have to actually dodge with the feather because Battle Line's laser doesn't keep up. And then just hit her. For this first vertical section, you're going to want to do a dash jump or a hyper to the wall, whichever one you want. If you want to touch the wall, then you just do a hyper. If you don't want to touch the wall, you do a dash jump. And then the rest of it is pretty straightforward. You just hold right and then dash at her, hold right and then dash at her. And a lot of people get caught in these rooms because they don't realize that they can just hold forward. Like you don't want to move slowly through this room. That's how the room gets difficult. You want to just go at her. Oops. I didn't even know there was a rock falling there. What was that? Like that. This room has a crazy advanced strat where you wave dash off that platform under the feather. I don't recommend anybody that's watching this go for that. Just grab the feather and go hit her. It's pretty straightforward. So after this feather screen, you should remember this picture right here. When you're here, you have to enter the next screen with a hyper dash. You have to. So what I do actually is from here, this is where you land. I hyper bunny hop here, or I just or I recoil and dash here and then hyper here, because I want to wave dash off of this tip. You could hyper, but you run the risk of your jump not being read before the transition. So I always wave dash into the screen. And that gives me the momentum to completely skip that bumper. If you don't do that, you have to do some maneuvering to get around that bumper area. But if you do that, you can use your second dash, your dash that you got back from the transition, to just completely skip that section. And then here, immediately what you want to do is you want to fall down to the green to dodge the laser, and then extended hyper dash. And you can either go up to the wooden platform right in front of battle line, or past battle line and wall jump off the back. Like this. So again, if you don't, you have to like do that, and then you can come up here like that. So whichever wall jump you want, they're roughly the same. When you get into this screen, you just have to get to her. I like to land on the green and then hyper dash. That's my most consistent way. And then again here, once you recoil, you don't want to go max distance, so you always dash forward, and then you hyper dash to get to her. This part is a little tricky. If you don't move as fast as possible here, you'll get hit by the laser. So you have to cancel the recoil from that hit as soon as you can. Land on the tip here and then jump dash forward, jump dash forward. Like, you don't hesitate, you don't think about it, you just input the motions and you trust that Madeline's gonna do it, and you'll get it if you just trust her. I didn't trust her. Also, the pause threw off my timing. This screen is also pretty straightforward. You just want to move as fast as possible to her. The vertical screens are usually the easiest screens. Just hyper, dash down, get this, dash left. You can wave dash off of this if you want, most people do. And then just dash to these things. Now she's gonna mumble at me. She's like a toad in Super Mario World. Okay, after you skip this cutscene, you want to immediately hyper dash and bunny hop. That's the best way to do this screen. And if you dash forward fast enough, you can land here. Otherwise, you have to climb up. After this first screen, that's the first screen of the remix, right? And the next screen is one singular moving block. You want to hyper dash early off of this block, like before it's halfway, and you don't want to hold jump. The closer you get to the spikes, the more likely you are to hit the spikes. It's better to actually do it so early that you miss battle line and fall under her, and then just jump and hit her, than it is to do it later and get hit by the spikes. So again, it's just the hyper dash across. You don't have to do anything except make sure you don't hold jump. You saw right there from the pause, like I wasn't even halfway. The earlier you do it, the better. That's all there really is to it. And once I learned that, it made the room a lot easier for me. This room, these next two rooms coming up, you want to extend that hyper dash as soon as you enter them to get to her. As you saw, I just did it with the wave dash instead, but it's essentially the same thing. This third hit, so not the next one, the one coming after, if you wave dash after hitting her, you can make an earlier cycle that allows you to kill her a little bit sooner. It looks like this. Bam, and then wave dash, come up here, and then come here with the hyper. And then after the remix starts, with the music is strange and there's a lot more purple blocks and stuff. After this happens, you don't want to hyper into any more of the screens. If you hyper into the screens, you generally screw yourself over. So you want to get into the screen and then do extended hypers. And they're here. This screen, after hitting her, you want to get on this purple block right away. And then you want to wait for it to completely stop so it doesn't have any momentum. Once it has no momentum, you want to hyper to the next block. And then this block, you want to jump with the momentum and then get over the wall to her. And this is the last vertical section. You want to dash over this from the feather just to get out of it a little sooner. This hit is straightforward. This hit is straightforward. Here you dash left. Make sure you only jump here, don't hyper or anything like that. And you can bumper boost here if you want, it doesn't do anything. And then this is the only screen that you can hyper into. I actually don't recommend hypering into this screen anyway, even though you can. Like me and TGH, a couple other people, we do hyper into the screen, but that's because we completely understand how to control Madeline's momentum. While you're still learning, I recommend just walking into the screen so that you don't run into the pink spikes for no reason, or you don't get shot by the laser trying to catch the feather. So you walk into the screen and then grab your feather. Make sure you dodge the laser every time. If you dash into that feather, you can generally guide the laser a little lower. And then you don't even need that bumper, so make sure you just dash from the feather to the green here. You don't need to go to that bumper, it's a waste of your time. From here you can extend that hyper dash to that top green, and the extended hyper dash, just make sure that you avoid the laser. That's the main purpose. You could just do a hyper or a dash jump, but if the laser is locked onto you, you're gonna get stuck. But with an extended hyper dash, you can always dash up. Oh, I was talking, so. With an extended hyper dash, you can always dash up and dodge the laser. So right here, you want to dash into this feather so that the laser gets low. And then here you want to do an extended hyper dash, you can dash up. And then make sure you don't waste your dash there so you can get to battle line. And that's the battle line fight. The rest of the level is just fast movement, using your newfound double dash to get some good wall bounces. And that's chapter 6. That was a decent exit for me. You can just try to copy that one if you want. But however you feel more comfortable doing the wall bounces is better. That's one of the longest chapters in the game, so that only took 46 minutes to explain it. Some it'll probably be even a little longer than that because it's actually more technical than that. So look forward to doing that one. And I'll catch you guys then. Peace.